Like,
You can just like magic it back.
Whoa, you're gonna bring magic into the conversation? What do you think this
Yes,
is?
because it's a druid. If you strapped like half of a log to your chest and someone hit you with an axe, guess what happens? Nothing. You're fine. They hit you with an axe like 19 more times. Yeah, there's going to be an issue.
that's what I was saying. Yeah, so a fresh set of wooden armor compared to a fresh set of plate armor. The wooden armor actually probably do really well with one hit, and that's it. And it's like, okay, that armor's scrapped. Next one.
You'd honestly probably disarm them. That would be great. The sword just like sticks into your armor. You're like, ha! Everybody slept on wood plate.
Welcome to Monsters and Multiclass, your Dungeons and Dragons fix. I'm Eliotti.
I'm Jared Bornagle.
And I'm Will Meldon.
And on this episode, we are taking a look at Druid Paladin. Again, another one of our Redux series. This launched November of 2018, making it one of our original episodes. We launched 5 episodes. Druid Paladin was one of them, and we have not talked about it since. There's been a lot, like even the Spores Druid wasn't out at that point, so big changes. It came out like 3 weeks later. It was terrible timing for us to launch that episode, but big changes in D&D. We're more experienced, so diving into it.
Yes, so druids are the full casters intertwined with nature. They can turn into animals using their wild shape ability, and sometimes subclasses alter that wild shape for other means. It takes 13 wisdom to multiclass in or out of. Then we have paladins, are knights of conviction, sometimes a holy order, other times just a strong belief. These martial beasts are differentiated from their herd with their ability to smite gained at 2nd level, which they take 13 strength to multiclass into and 13 charisma as well. And just a reminder that some multiclassing rules, going into Druid gives you proficiency in light armor, medium armor, and shields, nothing that paladins really need, and multiclassing into Paladin gives all of that plus simple and martial weapons. So, first thoughts, let's go ahead and hear from Will. What are you thinking?
Wasn't this Smite Eagle?
This was
Yes.
Smite Eagle.
It was Smite
Yeah.
Eagle.
It's been 5 years, so that's still cool.
All right. If you enjoyed the episode, then make sure to like, comment, subscribe.
This is actually one of those ones that did actually change a lot. It still kind of sucks, but there is some coolness there. It's mainly the stat dependencies are just obnoxious, and you have a lot of options to go various directions, whether you want to use your strength or shillelagh. It's just neither are particularly good. And then, of course, the armor issue, which we can yell about in a bit, but I think the new forms of wild shape actually improve this, despite how cool Smite Eagle is. So, good addition.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag. Ellie, your thoughts?
I really like it. I know there's hard stat array if you need 13 strength, charisma, and wisdom, but you could really easily just keep charisma at 13, maybe make it 14. And then, pick if you want to focus on strength or wisdom. And as you just said, well, there's a lot of options there about do you want to dump strength to focus on the wild shape for combat wild strength and be more of a caster. Then you could also just keep strength low as well and not worry about that. And even if you wanted at 15 or 16, it's not hard to have multiple stats that high. No issues at all with dumping intelligence. Even dexterity, I mean, like 8 dex characters are fine, especially if you spend a lot of time wild shaping. So I think that there's just a lot of flexibility around it. And then just the combination of them, I think there's a lot of really fun combinations between the different subclasses and abilities that they get to make really cool, fun, flavorful characters.
Yeah, definitely tons of potential there. So to talk about that elephant in the room of the stats being a bit of a nightmare, I did try to put together some stats, and this was assuming full rules as written, because I know some people may be constrained by that, and one of the big ones that was mentioned was the armor aspect. Officially, rules as written, druids are not allowed to wear really any heavy armor. It's armor with metal in it, I think, is the specification, which is a little archaic, potentially. I don't know. It really depends on your perspective of what classes should be. But if you are going that route where you cannot wear metal armor, then dex really can't be dumped unless you want your
Right.
AC to be basically nothing. So I was like, there has to be some way to make this just a viable stat breakdown. And the best that I could get using a half elf, which gives +2 charisma and then +1 in either or any choice that you want, was 13 strength. Oh, and sorry, using standard point buy. So 13 strength, 14 dex, 12 con, 8 wisdom, 8 intelligence, 16 wisdom, and 14 charisma, which isn't that bad. Your
No.
constitution might be a little bit low. Your dex isn't great, but anything more would be kind of pointless because you can only get +2 with medium armor anyways.
Yeah,
Strength
14
being
dex is plenty.
right. Wisdom being 16 seems like a good spot. And this is at level 1 I'm talking about. This is without any additional things. So as long as you have, and with Tasha's it's pretty easy to get, something that gives you +2 to one stat and +1 to 2 other stats, you can make an all right stat array for this.
Yeah, I think that's totally a viable array. Your main like caster stats are high. Yeah, melee stats are not high. That's the only problem there.
This would
But
be a
then if you
shillelagh build.
yes, which is totally valid, fine build. A lot of good characters run on that. And then if you do hand wave the armor away, why are you laughing?
I'm just imagining a bumper sticker. This druid runs on shillelagh.
Yeah. I like that. Okay. We should get that made. I'm not going to put it on my car.
A druid would
but
probably
I
ride
like
a bike.
stick it on the side of my monitor or something.
Sure.
All right. You derailed me. Oh yeah. Then if you not hand wave, just find a way around that armor limitations, where either you just ignore it, say they can wear metal armor because it just doesn't make sense for this character, and that's kind of a weird limitation. And I don't think druids are specifically balanced around that. Then you could even keep dex lower and just bump strength up, and then they could also not be a shillelagh build and just a strength based melee attacker. Or if you still want to adhere to that, work with the DM of finding non-metal versions of heavier armor,
Yeah,
which
and
again
that
is not
works.
like a crazy thing though.
No, it's a little bit tough at low levels. Not tough, but I don't know. It's a different conversation compared to if you are we'll say mid-level paladin, you're at like 7, 8 or so, and you want to start dipping into druid. Then taking one level into druid, maybe part of that is going on a quest to find new armor. That's not metal because you think metal's icky now. I'm open to it.
Sure.
Just make it out of wood.
It's not how armor works.
Okay. You're telling me you can't make wood plate?
I am telling you that wood plate will not offer you the protection that heavy armor would.
It definitely wouldn't have the longevity to it. It might be able to
You're
take a blow,
druid.
like
You can just like magic it back.
Whoa, you're going to bring magic into the conversation? What do you think
Yes,
this is?
because it's a druid. If you strapped half of a log to your chest and someone hit you with an axe, guess what happens? Nothing. You're fine. They hit you with an axe 19 more times. Yeah, there's going to be an issue.
That's what I was saying. Yeah, so a fresh set of wooden armor compared to a fresh set of plate armor. The wooden armor actually probably do really well with one hit, and that's it. And it's like, okay, that armor scrapped. Next one.
You'd honestly probably disarm them. That would be great. The sword just sticks into your armor. You're like, ha! Everybody slept on wood plate.
So I think what we're getting at here is you can find ways around it.
Mm-hmm.
And Ellie, you even mentioned that even if you do have, let's say you don't have the strength for it, but you do want to wear the heavy armor. We've talked about this recently, I'm pretty sure, but the -10 to your speed.
Multiclass, yeah.
Yeah, it's not character breaking. Yeah, it's not like, oh, this build is just done. I've got -10 to speed. It stinks, but it's not. It could be worth it, depending on what you're going for.
Right. And again, if you're going Moon Druid with combat wild shape and that's your main fighting in a wild shape, none of it matters. You take the AC and the strength, the physical characteristics of the animal you shape into, while still being able to smite as a paladin and have your auras up and all that really cool stuff that we've talked about to death in the original episode. And I don't know if we need to get into too much detail here. That hasn't really changed.
4.5 years. We need to talk about eagle smites again.
Okay.
So
talking about eagle smites,
because I believe that the original time when it came up, if you didn't listen to our first 5 episodes, I don't even listen to them now. They're not as good as they are now. We're so much more entertaining and charismatic and whatever. Um, the question comes up of whether or not your animal weapons can be considered weapons for the purpose of smiting. And there's that issue in even if with a monk. If you're a monk paladin multiclass, first off, you made a mistake, and you can't, rules as written, smite with your fists. So, would you be able to smite with your eagle talons or your bear claws or your jelly filled donuts? Whatever is fitting for the scenario. It's a bit of donut wordplay, but I don't know if that one's going to land with most of the audience. Does anyone eat bear claws anymore?
I mean,
Oh, all right.
okay.
Yeah, that was bad.
I did not get it till you explained it there, but I do like bear claws. They're good donuts.
Okay, they're good. I just don't see them offered
Yeah.
that much. But
No.
Like the worst thing in the box.
they're too big. I don't like when it's like I already feel bad. I'm eating a donut, and now you've got this massive bear claw.
That's not the problem with bear claws. Like donuts are not worse because they're too big. That's like the opposite of the problem with a donut. Bear claws are just not very good.
All right. Well, we can have this fight offline.
Too intense for the podcast.
Yeah. Anyways, back to the original question is should you be able to smite with them? And rules is written. I don't honestly even remember what the answer is because I know what my answer is in my heart.
It's a yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's no, even rules is
Yeah,
written.
yes.
It is a yes officially with wild shape and smiting because smiting is not. It's using a spell slot, but it's not casting a spell, and that's really really clear. So you don't run into that limitation because you can't cast spells with wild shaped, and B, the natural attacks of the animals are considered natural weapons. They are melee weapon attacks and they are doing weapon damage. Where it gets really weird with the monk is monks count as melee weapon attacks, but there's a sloppy wording in Divine Smite where it's a start and second level. When you hit a creature with a melee weapon attack, you can expend one spell slot to deal radiant damage to the target in addition to the weapon's damage. So an unarmed strike is a melee weapon attack for some reason. It's weird. But
But it's not an attack
because
with a
of the
melee weapon.
line, in addition to the weapons damage, officially Jeremy Crawford has tweeted and done sage advice on it saying that no, because of that line, it's assuming a weapon is smiting and the unarmed is not a weapon. It's a melee weapon attack, but it's not a weapon unless you can't smite. I don't like it. Just let them smite with fist. It's fine. But that's
Yeah,
not the conversation
that's
we're having anyways.
right. Thank you
So,
for
yes,
rehashing that because every time
yes.
I push it out of my memory because it makes me so angry and I can't remember the specific reasons of why it makes me angry. So I appreciate you holding on to that information for me.
Yep, it's stuck. I try. I want the sludge.
If you ever need me to rant about the bonus action spell casting interaction, that one I've got locked down with action
Yes.
search.
I ran into that recently. Last night I was DMing for my group of new players. Like I mean, we play like 5 or 6 times, so not like brand new, but still new. And somebody bonus action healing word, and then tried to cast a spell, and I had to explain why they couldn't do it, and
Oh.
no one understood it. And I
Yep.
just like, I'm gonna send you it later, but you just need to trust me right now. You have to cast a cantrip or do something else with your action.
And that's literally the tip of the iceberg in terms of frustrating.
Yeah,
Because that one I do get. It's good balance. It's not important. Just remember, you can action surge and cast like Fireball twice, but you can't cast Fireball and Misty Step and then Fireball or whatever. I'm not getting into it.
and
This
not,
really
it's not gonna. Yeah,
on the rails. Let's go. Smiting as an eagle, as a bear, with your jelly donuts, it doesn't matter. Just the smite is okay, which is
Yes.
fantastic for this multi-class because adding the druid levels gives more access to spell slots, giving you more opportunities to smite, which is good. Before, when we talked about this, the limiter was most of the time a druid doesn't want to attack with their melee attacks because they've got better things to do, or their wild shape is not that great unless they're moon druid. So that's really the only time where it would come up. And if you're, turning into a bird and smiting for your like 1 damage plus your smite, it would be kind of silly. But now we have the different wild shape interactions where being in your normal form, using Shillelagh and relying on those wild shape abilities like the Spore Druid, like the uh, Circle of Stars, and the Wildfire.
Wildfire,
All
kind
of
of.
those
We'll
give you an
get to, but
opportunity, yeah, to use that wild shape and still be smiting, still be melee attacking. And yeah, it's, you mentioned earlier, but like these new subclasses really do open this multi-class up in a great way.
yeah, and to dive into one, Circle Spores is amazing with the Paladin. It's like it's written for it because it very much is like the melee druid. Um, because you get Halo Spores. If something moves towards you within 10 feet, you could cause a save and do 1d4 necrotic damage. That damage goes up as the druid levels go up. It's not a ton, but it's like you are going to be like up in people's faces within 10 feet of enemies. And so that's going to be going off a lot. You're not like the caster in the back who only gets to occasionally use that. And then Symbiotic Entity. This is their new use of wild shape. So instead of turning into an animal, we always call it sporing up. I don't know why, but I don't remember
Because
where it came from.
Will
I think something
said he
Will
was
said.
sporing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's a whole action. That's the only part that sucks. But you expend the wild shape, awake the spores within you, transforming, rather than transforming a beast. You gain 4 temporary hit points for each level you have in the class. And while it's active, your Halo of Spores, which was just talked about, the reaction does double damage, 2 dice. And your melee weapon attacks deal an extra 1d6 necrotic damage to target they hit. And if you get extra attack from Paladin, that's 2d6 extra. Lasts for 10 minutes. Or, and this is where it gets tricky, until you lose all these temporary hit points. So you do need to make sure you keep up on your druid levels if this is the route you're going, because 4 temp HP per level is not a ton. Like if you're like level 5 paladin and level 2 druid for this, you have 8 temp HP as a level 7 character. That's gone in a round, and so you're not getting much use of it. So this particular build, I think, would be better played as focus on Spore Druid and pick up literally just 2 levels in Paladin. That's enough to get smites, and then you could use your cleric not blah. That's enough to get splites. Jesus.
Nailed it. Stuck the landing.
Yeah, and just pick up 2 levels in Paladin because that's enough to get smites, and you can use your druid levels, spell levels to fuel those smites. You could cast it at higher, not cast it, just expend the higher level spell slots. Paladin level does not need to go up to use higher level spell slots. Smell slots. Jesus, I cannot talk. Spell slots.
I can only
There we
smell
go.
3 times a day. But twice a day I can smell extra hard.
Yes.
And I think one thing that benefits here is we've now had a campaign and a quarter. I don't know how far we are through our current campaign, but we've had 2 Spore Druids more or less. And if you are focusing on that melee, you're just not casting that many spells. So adding in the Paladin gives you a really good reason to be casting spells and using those spell slots up. It really can become a kind of wayside resource in comparison.
I'll also add, having been the proto Spore Druid in our experience, that you need something other than just raw Druid to make Spore Druid melee work. It's very, very tempting. It's just not very good. Shillelagh makes it okay, and the extra d6 isn't bad, but if you don't have a way to get a second attack, or you're not spamming Booming Blade, you're not doing the ideal. The ideal probably is going to be Chill Touch. It's just how it is. So that's my advice, is I wouldn't go chasing extra attack with Paladin. I'd probably just get Polearm Master. And then you can
Okay.
have your Smitey. But the
That's
smites
good.
do make it better, but to really, really round out the I'm going to beat stuff up as a druid thing, Polearm Master is the way to go.
And that
Right,
you
and since you're a
cannot
paladin, you have access. Okay.
that you can't use Shillelagh on, correct? Or can you?
No, you can use a quarterstaff with Polearm Master.
Oh.
So you
So
don't have
this
the
is- yeah,
reach,
this is
but
the
you still
cool-
get the bonus action bonk attack, and which you get smite off.
Yeah, so you can double smite as a druid, which is just so obnoxious. Just sneaking in those smites to destroy your DM's hard rot plans.
Yeah, the big thing with Polearm Master that we're talking about is after you make an attack with, it's a list of polearms, basically. You could, as a bonus action, hit something at the back end of the polearm, and it does 1d4 plus, whatever your modifier is damage if it hits.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what Will's talking about there.
obviously we're talking now in a level 20 build here because you need a whole lot of stats for this as well as a whole lot of ability score increases. But getting Polearm Master and Sentinel would make you really annoying because anytime somebody runs
Well,
at
yeah.
you, you're using your reaction to Halo of Spores. You're using your you can't also get an opportunity attack. Actually, those
No.
do
Yeah.
cause issues.
No, I wouldn't do that.
I wouldn't do that either.
Those,
You're
those
right.
that Halo spores, it'll sneak up on you.
That's not what I remember you saying for a solid year and a half during that campaign. I feel like I remember
That's
you
because
saying
after like 5 years, we finally saw something die to it. Last like 4 nights ago.
it's happened twice this campaign, actually. But it's another stat we'll have to start tracking.
Right. All right, we're gonna peel back the curtain. We got interrupted mid sentence and I walked away for like a few minutes. Now we have no idea where we were. So I'm sorry for an awkward jump cut and segue, but
Or you'll be able
what's
to do it
next?
seamlessly. Who knows?
I doubt it.
We can still actually talk about Sentinel because what we were discussing about how the reactions don't mash up well, turn off at level 10 because you get the spreading spores ability where you make your spore cube, which turns off your reactions. So it doesn't matter anymore. So now you can hold somebody in the spores.
That's a
This is a
good
great,
point,
great
actually.
build.
So obviously we're talking about further down the line, but if you are coming into the Paladin class late and you're already at this, 10th or 14th level druid and now you want to start multiclassing, it's an option. You don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, I mean we should cover what those do. Spreading spores.
Yeah, spreading spores is as a bonus action while using your symbiotic entity feature, which is sporing up. You can hurl spores up to 30 feet away, where they swirl in a 10-foot cube for 1 minute. Spores disappear early if you use this again, if you dismiss them as a bonus action, or if your symbiotic entity drops. Whenever a creature moves into the cube or starts its turn there, they take your Halo of Spores damage unless they succeed on a con saving throw against your spell save DC. And they take it no more than once per turn. But again, doesn't take your reaction to use. It only takes your bonus action to move it and can affect multiple creatures. So pretty big boost to that Halo of Spores.
Yeah, and also and then Sentinel as well. Was talking about that's the feat where if you hit somebody with an opportunity attack, its speed drops to 0. So you could kind of get something, and then combined with Polar Master, where you could make an opportunity attack when something enters your reach of your polearm. So you get a lot more opportunities to do it, and you can lock people down in your spores.
Yeah, and just keep bonking them in their head, basically.
Yep, smiting all along.
Actually, I'm taking all this back. This is really obnoxious.
It super is. It's Polar Master and Sentinel
Polar Master with
plus
a little bit of
AoE.
Sentinel. Also, I can smite. No, don't do that. That's just annoying.
It's super annoying, but it's also, I don't want to say situational, but it's like so much setup to get there. We're talking high level. We're talking about taking 2 feats. We're talking about multiclassing with the weirdest stat array. Like all these things that you have to do to reach this mythical, I bonk you into the spores. And you stay there because I say so. Like, I think there's a hold person spell that makes this a lot easier.
Yeah. It's not a combo worth chasing, but it's just kind of like a neat little thing if you're kind of high enough.
And
There. And actually, you don't even need to really be. I guess you do need Paladin for Polar Master because I don't think Druids could use those otherwise. No, they can use a quarterstaff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, with Shillelagh. And yeah. Or if you multiclass into Paladin, taking, whatever it is that you want, and then because you get all martial weapons.
I think it's really just for the smite to really drive it home.
Right. One thing I don't like about Circle of Spores and with basically any Paladin subclass is how it does take a full turn to get up and running, as it is an action to spore up, use your symbiotic entity feature. And if you want to like Shillelagh, if you're kind of running that where your strength's low, a bonus action, and then like that is your turn, and maybe you move into position. I personally do not like playing that. I don't find them fun. I find them frustrating. I don't like those builds. I know our Spore Druid Warlock at the table has that, and that's what she does. And I do feel like it kind of hurts her. Like when she hits, it's hard, but it's like she's not hitting a lot because it's like an entire round and dedicated to that. And then the thing moves away, and then she needs to move closer, or she misses her next one attack that she gets. And it's like, it could be rough. It's a lot of missed attacks and just a lot of frustration, a lot of wasted turns.
Yeah, it's like a rogue, but you need to set up your first attack using your entire action and bonus action.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's very much it's frustrating. It's something I do dislike, as you said, about the circle of spores. I'm okay with it at second level, sure, but I really do feel like at maybe 10th level, or just at some point, this symbiotic entity needs to become a bonus action, or like the barbarians. What is it? Where like if they start combat, they can't be surprised so long as they rage at the very start. Like I want something like that, where when combat starts, you can have your symbiotic entity come up right away, but it, I don't know, takes your reaction your first round or something. I don't know. I have not thought about that much further beyond I want some way to just trigger it without it taking up your entire action economy.
Yeah. Paladins do get some interesting bonus action spells to maybe make use of it, but again, it's most of them are still set up. Or something you don't want, like compel duel. You probably don't want to do that on yourself because you want to keep those temp hit points around as long as possible. And if you're making something only attack you, it's gonna lower that quite a bit. And then it's a bunch of smite spells: Searing Smite, Thunder Smite, Wrathful Smite, Branding Smite, which are all cool spells and all that. No issues with them, but it's just more setup. Instead of bonus action Shillelagh, if you have the strength, that's bonus action, Thunderous Smite or whatever. Or you cast like Shield of Faith for +2 AC, which is I guess an okay combination with Spore Druid because you get hit less, and so your temp hit points will last longer. But again, it's still just more setup round. There's not like I'm not seeing anything here that like saves that first round because Paladins can do this cool thing with their bonus action.
I know what saves it: a 2-level dip into fighter for action surge.
Okay, there we go. You'd already had the stats for it.
Yep. And 2 levels in fighter is always a benefit.
Yeah.
That's like mostly a joke, but worth
Eh.
considering.
All right, so I think we're going to move on from Spore Druid. We kind of talked that one to death. What's interesting, all of the things I have in my head are a particular Druid subclass and then anything Paladin. Because I feel like Paladins are like, Druids are really, really
They get a lot of
crafted. The
flavor from their
unique part.
subclasses.
Yeah. Yeah. The core Druid gets nothing unique between level 8 and 18. I just learned that researching this. It never clicked with me that happens. Yeah, at 8 they get their wild shape improvement, and then nothing else. And it's Druid circle feature ability score improvement, circle feature ability score improvement. Then at 18th, timeless body and beast spells. Most of it is from their subclass. It's crazy.
Yeah, most full casters kind of follow a similar trajectory
Hmm.
because getting spells is its
Yeah, I say
own
they
class
are. They
feature.
are getting spells. Yeah. So I like Circle of Stars as giving the paladin ranged options because that's always a common thing we'll talk about with paladins, and just a shortcoming for people who are just playing just a paladin. Ranged options are always really limited. Circle of Stars and going Starry Form, which another alternative use for the wild shape, gives them good ranged options.
It is a really good starting turn as you close the gap as a paladin, because that
Yeah,
I think happened a lot of times when I was playing a paladin was I would need to run to something that was more than 30 feet away. So I'd run and be like, okay, so I can either dash, which obviously uses up my action, or I can stand here and hope they come closer. So
right.
that always hurt. So just being able to throw out the guiding bolt just to do something is much better.
Yeah, well, so there's that. Yeah, there's the second level guiding bolt where you get one free guiding bolt per long rest, or you can use your spell slots, but it's just like a good ranged attack. And then Starry Form, so this is a bonus action to go into Starry Form using your wild shape, so not a full action. And then there's you get like star constellations on your body and to have light coming out from you, dim light. But then you choose the Archer, the Chalice, or the Dragon. And if you choose Archer, when you activate this form and as a bonus action on your turns while it lasts, you can make a ranged spell attack, hurling a luminous arrow that targets one creature within 60 feet. On hit, the attack deals radiant damage equal to 1d8 plus your wisdom modifier. This would be a time when I would do shit that runs into each other. I was gonna say do Shillelagh because you could just focus on wisdom, but
Yeah.
then they're both bonus actions.
Yeah, which is
But
why I
either
was
way,
talking about guiding bolt. But yeah, I guess either
that's
way
still
is
wisdom.
Yeah, I meant more that you're probably not going to be using your action the first round if it's a setup, as you're just running
Right.
closer. Now, instead of dashing, while you're closing the gap, you still have options, and it's kind of depends on what you're fighting, right? If you're fighting something that's flying, maybe don't cast Shillelagh. Go Starry
Right.
Forms. That way, you're going to be able to do those ranged attacks. If you're fighting something that you're going to close the gap on, all right, I'm probably not going to activate my Starry Form first turn, and I'll do it second turn, and I'll debate if Archer's the correct move if I'm going to be up close, or maybe I do the other two options, depending on again what you're trying to accomplish.
Right. Or you can do both of it. It's just the run up thing. Action to Guiding Bolt, bonus action to Star Reform Archer and make that attack now at advantage. Close the
Right.
gap next turn. And then it's like maybe you'll probably still find uses for that Archer. Like even if it's a ranged spell attack within 60 feet. And just as a bonus action, so if you're not using your bonus action, you can even just use it on the thing you're attacking in melee as a paladin. It's like it would be a disadvantaged attack, but it's better than no bonus action. And then it also has that versatility of being able to, if something is at range, still hit them as just a bonus action.
I think if you're attacking, if you're using the Archer ability at disadvantage, you're probably better off using one of the Druid spells that takes a bonus action to maintain. There's a lot of those options that I think.
Like what?
Um, what's the Flame Sphere was one.
Yeah.
Call Lightning's higher level. So if this is a
Mm,
2-level dip, then I think you're spot on.
Moonbeam,
Moonbeam,
maybe.
that was one
No.
option. That's an
Moonbeam
action to
is an
move.
Oh, that's
action to move
action.
it.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
that's why that one sucks.
Yeah, I'd have to dig through them, but there's a couple where it's like a bonus action to maintain, and I would probably look at that before doing Archer. But again, that's talking about if you're mostly Druid, small dip into Paladin. This actually works
Right.
pretty well with a 2-level dip into Druid, and you're getting a lot of bonuses, and you wouldn't have had that ranged attack option as a Paladin. So yeah, that would be a really good way to do it.
Right. Yeah, what would you get? Yeah. You would just get base wild shape, and like you can still use wild shape to turn into an animal. It's not going to be combat, but that has a lot of uses and utility and versatility outside of combat, and maybe even in combat. You get the druid spells, um, and then yeah, those druid circle things where you learn guiding bolt. You can cast them once for free, and then you get that special wild shape. And then you also get the other ones are not bad. There's one where if you cast a healing spell that uses a spell slot, you get healed. Maybe not the greatest for a paladin, but I mean, because they're probably more using land hands than anything. Or the one where they get advantage on
And
charisma.
intelligence or wisdom checks or constitution saving throw to maintain
That's what I meant. I don't know. I
concentration.
said charisma. Yeah, concentration checks. Thank you.
Yeah, and that paired with a high level paladin is pretty extreme because they get to add their charisma to concentration checks as it is
Mm.
once they hit 6th level, as well as
It's
everybody else around them. That's
it's
their
better than advantage. It's if you roll a 9 or lower, treat the result as a 10.
thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
So you could be kind of rolling by default a 10 plus whatever your constitution is plus whatever your charisma is. That is a very high check to maintain concentration. Most paladin spells, I don't know if maintaining concentration is super important, but if you dedicated the resource to casting it, you want to hold on to it. So Shield of Faith is that +2 to your AC. I think all of the smites are concentration, aren't they?
Yes.
Which is silly, but whatever. Again, you don't want to lose it. It sucks to cast a second or third level spell when you've got so limited of ones and to lose it. So
Right.
I definitely like that. And if you miss your attacks, that's possible that you have to concentrate on it into the next round. So yeah, I think Dragon, if you are just straight up going for that melee build, then Dragon could become very useful.
Absolutely. So yeah, a little too old up, get a lot out of it. The only issue is getting that wisdom to where you need it for the 2-level tab.
Less difficult than I'd say the other way around, right? Like if you
Yeah.
are a paladin with 16 charisma and 16 strength and I don't know 12 constitution, 14 constitution, even getting to just 13 wisdom isn't that high. I mean, you don't need dexterity, you don't need intelligence, so usually you're pretty slotted into just those three. So a small amount of wisdom, it's a small price to pay for what you get out of 2 levels of druid.
Right, except for all of this is based off of wisdom, except dragons not obviously, but like the archer stuff and the guiding bolt, those are wisdom based attacks. So if your wisdom, if you just keep it at 13, it almost makes it not worth it
That's fair.
because
I was
they're
thinking
not
purely
hitting
for
the
the
10.
dragon.
Okay.
But you're right, for the other stuff, the guiding bolt, those other benefits that are great benefits, you want wisdom a little higher.
Right. Yeah, so it would be hard to do this without planning it at character creation, I think. But if you plan it at character creation, strength and wisdom at 16, charisma at 14, con decent, dex intelligence low.
And
You
then
just feel
just
free.
keep
Like you could have low dex characters. I wouldn't recommend a low con character, but low dex characters. Like okay, it's fine. Like I've played them. I've played an 8 dex paladin before. It was fun. He did fine.
yeah, that really depends on how high you want to get in paladin. Just because if you're level 6 paladin and you're like not using your aura of what is it called? Aura of protection. Like that always hurts if you're only getting a +2 out of that when it just could be so great. And that's
Mhm.
where you can add your charisma modifier to not just your saving throws, but any friendly creature within 10 feet of you saving throws, you get to add the charisma modifier. I mean, it's hard to say, like, oh, well, at least you can do ranged attacks. It's like, that's so critical to the paladin's utility that I don't know. The stats don't specifically matter. You can make something work, is I guess the long and short of it.
Right.
Depends on what you're going for.
Yeah.
For the
So
later Circle of Stars stuff, I'd say it's really just depends on how high level you're going to get, but nothing truly changes the synergy of this. It just kind of works. In terms of the flavor, I do really like Circle of Stars and Oath of the Watchers. I don't love that subclass too much. I don't really love any Paladin subclass too much in terms of just pure strength. Their core class itself is really strong. But
mhm.
Oath of the Watchers is at least neat from a flavor perspective because it talks a lot about the Oath of the Watchers binds paladins to protect mortal realms from the predations of extraplanar creatures, many of which can lay waste to mortal soldiers. So that idea of extraplanar works really well in the D&D fantasy because generally space is seen as a separate realm of some sort. So I kind of like it being with stars and Watcher, the idea of just protecting the outer planes, protecting from what comes beyond the stars. In the right campaign, I think there's a lot you can do with that. There's a lot of times where if you want to say Spelljammer, this would actually probably fit extremely well. But also, really, any time that you are dealing with mind flayers, because those are kind of considered aliens in a way, the core spawn as well. There's a good amount that can be considered either extraplanar or just literally from D&D space.
It,
Other combination I was thinking was the Circle of Wildfire and Oath of Redemption. I really like
okay.
that like there's cleansing in the flame type of
Oh, okay.
combination.
Okay.
So fire has tons of rebirth metaphors, dark souls with rekindling the flame, the
Mhm.
phoenix, and a billion others, I'm sure.
That weird promo Spirit and Spirit Island, the board game
Of
that
course.
everyone's gonna get. Yeah.
But I like the idea of like an edgy as fuck person offering redemption to the wicked and spouting some like, if you will not snuff the fire of hatred within your heart, then I will take matters into my own hands. Just like I like the flavor. It
I
works really
like it a
well.
lot. No, I came up with the exact same thing, but I just paired it with Oath of Vengeance. Like it
That's
both
funny.
works, but
Yeah,
they do both work. I think Oath of Vengeance is stronger mechanically, but
yeah,
because of Valve Enmity and some cool spells like Hunter's Mark and Bait and Hold Person and Misty Step.
yeah. It always ends up
Um,
being stronger.
yeah. But Circle of Wildfire does have some good mechanical things. It's another way to get a pretty consistent ranged attack for a paladin. Circle of Wildfire's main thing being you could spend the wild shape to summon your wildfire spirit, who is a companion that it works just like the Drake Warden or the reworked Beastmaster or any kind of summon companion. Bonus action to command it, and you could do it, I think, as part of the action of summoning it. Oh, it is a full action to summon it. That kind of sucks.
That's the one part
Yeah.
that hurts us in the same way that Spore Druid. But at least for this, when you summon it, it does force creatures, so you can summon it up to 30 feet away from you, and each creature within 10 feet of the spirit must succeed on a dexterity saving throw against your spell save DC or take 2d6 fire damage. And maybe that's something that Spore Druid's missing. Maybe like, I was talking about a way to get
Yeah.
it up easier. Maybe that's what it kind of needs is like when you spore up, you do an AoE around you. That could be interesting.
That's what the 10th level actually does. We keep drifting
Is
back to
it?
Spore Druid. But
I
the
know,
10th level
sorry.
gives you a bonus action that you can throw your spores. So that's actually the good combo.
Are you immune to that?
Yeah, I believe so.
I don't think you're immune to your own, which is
I don't know.
okay, whatever. Let's get off Spore Druid. But
Right.
No, let's...
so yes, you can summon it again 30 feet away, do some damage. So even though you're using your whole action, it doesn't feel like you're using everything up to get it out there.
Right. And well, then the Wildfire Spirit has Flame Seed, which is a 60-foot ranged attack, which you can command it to as a bonus action, which is 1d6 plus your proficiency bonus in fire damage. So that's going to go up even if you're not staying in Druid,
Yeah, the
which is
5
nice.
plus 5 times your druid level is where you are going to want to stay in druid, potentially. This
Yeah.
is probably stronger as a small dip into paladin, but it works. It works as a small dip into paladin, and it creates a really interesting play style too, because
Hmm.
fiery teleportation is one of the wildfire spirit's abilities, one of its actions, and that's the spirit and each willing creature of your choice within 5 feet of it teleport up to 15 feet to an unoccupied space that you can see. Then each creature within 5 feet of that space that the spirit left must succeed on a dex saving throw against your spell save DC or take 1d6 plus proficiency bonus fire damage. So usually that teleportation is used to get you out of a situation, and you could probably combine that with your paladin druid running up there and then using the fiery teleportation to get you back out and doing some fire damage while you do so. But it also gives you opportunities to kind of jump forward 15 feet as well when maybe you don't have the movement distance for it. So it does just, in my eyes, create a really interesting play style where you're now a paladin who has the ability to teleport 15 feet basically every turn.
End of their turn. So
Yes, end of their turn. Yep.
the Wildfire Spirit goes immediately after your turn. So you can't, I guess you could ready an attack and you would just get one attack, but
Yeah, I mean, I'm less even concerned about that and more of if you just need that extra 15 feet to get into the fray. It puts you into a good spot. It's
right.
positioning, which
Yeah.
is a paladin's one of their biggest weaknesses, I find.
Yeah.
And unless you're a rogue paladin who was also a tabaxi and could run like 120 feet in a turn, you did not deal with that issue as a
Oops.
paladin. But as a fighter paladin,
No.
I dealt with that all the time.
Right. Also, if you go to third level as Wildfire, you get Flame Sphere and Scorching Ray, just more good ranged attack options.
What else do they get?
And
They don't get
hmm,
fireball.
no.
Ugh. That'll never stop upsetting me.
Yeah. And then minor synergy thing, but at sixth level, they get the enhanced bond where if they do fire damage, they get to roll d8 and they get that as a bonus. Damage and Searing Smite is a smite that does fire damage. So just be able to amp that up.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that.
Yeah. It's a little thing. It's not worth chasing just for that, but it's not a
No,
bad combo.
no, I think just if you're there, right? It's
Hmm.
nice when things work out.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and I mean, just overall, and what we're seeing a lot from just these druid subclasses that have different uses of wild shape is they're very bonus action heavy, and one of the biggest benefits of this multi-class, whether or not it's been explicitly stated, is that paladins just don't have a lot of uses for their bonus actions. Even though you have all of those bonus action smite spells, those really don't get used that much. It's not a great risk reward because you might lose concentration, you might miss the attacks. It's easier just to smite when you hit them. It's already right there. So amping it up
Right.
with bonus action smites, it's like, why bother? And adding in this druid is just like, yes, okay, I'm using my bonus action every turn. And it's not like when we try and multi-class with a rogue and it's like, great, now I've got bonus action paralysis and I've got 16 different options. It's like, nope, you're not stepping on the toes of either class. It's just giving you more options.
Right. So anything from the Paladin side, they feel really changes things up.
No, just getting smites.
S-
There's subclasses. Just
Same.
the more longer we've been doing this, the less impressed I am with the Paladin
Hmm.
subclasses. From even a flavor perspective, I feel like a lot of times they just feel dull to me.
Yeah, like Oath of Glory is a new one, and like they get Channel Divinity, Peerless Athlete, where for the next 10 minutes you have advantage on strength and athletics and acrobatics checks, and you can push, carry, and drag twice as much. It's like, great. Okay.
Cool. Their inspiring
Um,
smite channel divinity is nice because you can give some temp HP. It's an alright ability. 2d8 plus your level
okay.
in the class divided among chosen creatures, however you like.
Yeah, it's not a ton, and I mean, it has nothing to do with Metronome for Druid. And if
No,
your Spore Druid is actually a problem, because then you can't take it,
right.
because it replaces it on the stack.
At least you could give it to other people.
Right.
What was the other new
Um,
one?
what was it? Watchers.
Oh, okay. Watchers I already talked about, which I
Yeah.
didn't even talk about the mechanics because it doesn't really change much. You get a new channel divinity. And honestly, something to keep in mind for this, because we talk about a 2-level dip in a lot of scenarios. If you are going the 2-level dip, don't think that means you have to ignore the flavor of the oath. You can choose to still take the flavor from that oath and just never take a 3rd level.
Right.
No one's stopping you.
Yeah. I think it's more fun, more interesting. Paladins is just, we've talked about it a lot. Every time Paladin subclasses or multiclass comes up, where they're a interesting multiclass to pick up, because there's just like a lot of character growth there and a lot of depth to it. Becoming a paladin's a very, very purposeful thing. And so it's just like there's tons of like character agency of taking this oath and taking that on and like changing up who they are to gain these powers to for whatever goals they now have. And so I think it's always a missed opportunity to not do that, to just say like, oh, it's just a weird way my magic manifests now.
I think that's the coolest way to be a paladin. I strongly encourage anyone listening, bring that to your table. Your oath is, I like doing smites. Nobody wants your new story about why you need revenge. Get out of here with that.
Oath of the Smites. I just love smiting. The idea sounded awesome, and every day I just woke up and I asked if I could smite, and yeah,
D8,
one day I
heck
could.
Man, it really is. Since we did this in 2018, it is literally just Oath of Glory and Oath of the Watchers, right? That's all that's
Yes,
new.
that is correct.
Conquest, Crown, and Redemption was Xanathar's. Devotion, Ancients, and Vengeance is Player Handbook, right?
Yeah.
Oathbreaker's Dungeon Master Guide. And then
Paladins
the
have
Open
not
Sea's a
gotten any
UA,
love.
so we don't really do
No,
those. And
that's a
then,
critical role
oh, okay.
subclass.
Either way,
So
we still don't really, yeah.
it's I don't know, below UA is the right word, but it's adjacent in its own
It's
category.
worse
Yeah.
than a UA.
It's one of the more alright paladin subclasses. It's still kind of weak though.
Yeah,
But
the
that's not
Watchers of
important.
Glory. Because, yeah, Glory what came out in Mythic Odyssey of Theros.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they did Tasha's, they just reprinted that in Watchers.
Yep.
So they got screwed out of an extra one.
And I don't know if saying they need it is the right word, but I do feel like when we've been doing our retros, it's been a little bit, but the Paladin to me feels like the one that's the least worthwhile to do a retro on because so little has changed since its inception. There has been
Right.
almost zero fundamentals school of, or just fundamentals are a word. There's been zero school of thought change with how a paladin works. You smite, your subclass allows you to use your channel divinity in a different way, and you're probably still just going to be smiting all the time. That's it.
What was the Oath of the Crown from? It was not Xanathar's. I was wrong about that.
No, Oath of the Crown was from a Magic the Gathering setting.
Oh, no, it's Sword Coast Adventure.
Oh,
It's a
was
It's
scam.
it?
always Sword Coast Adventure.
Oh,
Yeah.
You're right.
But that means it,
Yeah, because, yeah, and here's even nothing. So then in Xanathar's where most got 3, they got 2. They got Redemption and Conquest.
Yeah,
There's just not a lot of subclasses compared to the others for...
well, actually comparable. There's a lot of subclasses. Even, they have more than Druid.
Do they?
Yes.
I
Druid
guess they
has
do.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Yeah.
6, 7.
But
Paladin
they all
has
feel so different.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 8 if you want to take out Oathbreaker. So it's not that they
Right.
don't have a lot. It's that that's what I'm saying. They didn't fundamentally change anything. Like, somebody came into Druid with big ideas and shook up how we think of Druids with Circle of Spores, and it has had a lasting effect on the class for the positive. Somebody came into
The
Paladin
big thing
and made
being different ways to use wild shape.
yes, somebody
Yeah.
came into Paladins and made Oath of Glory after like 8 years.
Yep. All right. How's OpenSea doing? OpenSea doing? I'm not familiar with it.
I don't even want to get into it. We don't need to talk about OpenSea. It's too separate. Yeah, just in terms of like wrap up, I will say like Circle of Dreams, Circle of Shepherd, those are ones that do kind of fall into they give you a use for your bonus action that otherwise your Paladin doesn't have. I'm guessing we covered that when we first talked about these because they were in Xanathars. If we
Mhm.
didn't, then they spoke just about as much to us then as they do to us now. It's not that they're bad. There's no specific synergy with Paladin that makes this something wild. And if you play Circle of Shepherd at your table for the summoning, then you're a bad person. You're slowing down the game. And it's really not your fault that you're a bad person. It's Wizards of the Coast for allowing that in the first place. But I digress. What I will never digress from is how you can save 10% off your order at FanRoll by using the code MM10. And they have dice, metal dice, liquid core dice, which you're probably like, what are liquid core dice? They're liquid in a dice with little shinies. I mean, it's great. As well as different dice bags and dice accessories. And I don't know, they're at this point should have released a lot more things. They just sent me an email saying, hey, we're releasing more stuff, but they didn't say what that stuff was, and this episode's recorded like 3 weeks in advance, so I don't know what it is, but go check it out and use the code MM10 to get 10% off your order. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, leave a review if you're on the podcast, and thank you as always to our patrons: Ed G, Muddawait, Brian H, Craig A, Isaac M, Luca L, Jeff W, Star Shinobi, Vincent M, Bob F, Joe P, Rick D, Sentinel D20, Tyler S, Gray, Barons, Adam A, Rob K, and that's it. That's it. I just done. But if you want to support the show, you can head on over to monstersmulticlass.com/support, where you can find FanRoll, our Patreon, and any of our other affiliates to buy things and support the show. That's it. We're done. We did it.
As always, thanks for watching.
Druid Paladin. It's done. Eagle Smites. Ah!